The rain had been falling for hours over the streets of Boston, washing the sidewalks with reflections of red and gold city lights. Inside an aging yellow cab, Noah Rivera rubbed his tired eyes and turned up the heater. It was almost midnight, and the last few fares of the night were often the strangest. Noah was 34. He'd come to Boston from a small town in Puerto Rico 7 years earlier, chasing better work and leaving behind a life of disappointment. He worked 12 hours a day driving a taxi, trying to save enough to open his own garage someday. His hands were calloused, his back ached constantly, and yet every night when the city quieted down, he felt the same small spark of hope. He didn't know that this night would change everything. At exactly 11:48 p.m., his radio crackled. Pickup request, Huntington Avenue, outside the concert hall. Destination, Harborview Towers. Got it, Noah answered. He sighed, glancing at the clock. One last ride. The rain had turned into a fine mist by the time he pulled up in front of the concert hall. The streetlights shimmered against puddles as a lone figure stood under an umbrella, a woman in a silver coat, elegant but somehow fragile. She opened the cab door slowly, folding the umbrella with deliberate care. Her movements were graceful, but her left hand trembled slightly as she handed him an address on a card. "Harborview Towers, please," she said in a soft, deliberate voice. Her accent was refined, British maybe, and her tone polite but distant, as if she were used to being obeyed. Noah glanced in the rearview mirror. Her face was pale, her hair dark and perfectly styled, but her eyes looked tired. He started the car. "Late night," he said casually, hoping to break the silence. She didn't look up from her phone. "It usually is." The car filled with the hum of rain and soft jazz from the radio. For the first 10 minutes, they didn't speak. Then suddenly, the woman whispered almost to herself, "Do you ever feel like you're moving but going nowhere?" Noah blinked, surprised. "All the time," he said honestly, "especially in traffic." She smiled faintly. "You're honest. That's rare." He shrugged. "I drive for a living. I hear everyone's stories. Might as well be real about mine." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that sounded like it hadn't come out in a long time. "I'm Isabelle Hartman," she said finally. "You can call me Izzy." "Noah," he replied. "Nice to meet you, Izzy." The name hit him. Isabelle Hartman. The name was familiar. He realized why when they stopped at a red light and he glanced at a billboard on the corner. It was for Hartman and Sons Innovations, one of the biggest tech firms on the East Coast. The CEO listed on the board, Isabelle Hartman. He glanced in the mirror again. "You're the Isabelle Hartman," she sighed. "Guilty." He chuckled nervously. "You're like the most powerful woman in the city. What are you doing in my cab?" "Escaping," she said quietly. There was a long silence. The sound of the rain grew louder. Finally, she spoke again. "My father built the company. I took it over after his stroke, but I haven't slept in 3 days. There's a merger, a scandal, a board ready to destroy me, and a fiancé who doesn't love me. He just loves what I represent." Noah didn't know what to say, so he just drove. Then, halfway through the ride, a car cut across the intersection, splashing a wave of water onto the windshield. Noah swerved sharply to avoid it, and the car jolted. Isabelle gasped, clutching the door. "You okay?" Noah asked, heart pounding. "Yes," she breathed, "but that was close." He exhaled, steadying the wheel. "Welcome to Boston. People drive like they've got 9 lives." That made her laugh again, and something in her face softened, a human side that the tabloids never showed. When they reached Harborview Towers, she hesitated before opening the door. "Wait," she said. "Could you take me somewhere else?" He frowned. "Where?" She looked out at the skyline. "Anywhere but here." He hesitated, but then nodded. "All right." And so, the CEO and the taxi driver drove aimlessly through the sleeping city, past the empty docks, through Beacon Hill's cobbled streets, across the bridges glistening with rain. They talked. Really talked. She told him about her father, a brilliant man who'd built an empire but never had time for love, about her car accident 2 years earlier that had left her with nerve damage in her left hand, and a constant tremor that reminded her how fragile power really was. Noah told her about his mother's garage back home, the hurricanes that had taken everything, and how he promised her before she died that he'd build something of his own someday. Their worlds couldn't have been further apart, but for the first time, both felt seen. When dawn began to color the horizon pink, Isabelle finally said, "I haven't felt this human in years." He smiled. "That's funny. You're the most human person I've met all night." Before she could reply, her phone buzzed again, dozens of missed calls and messages. She sighed, shoulders heavy. Duty calls. He parked in front of her tower again. "You'll figure it out," he said quietly. "People like you always do." She looked at him for a long moment. "You think too highly of me, Noah." "No," he said softly. "You just think too little of yourself." She left him $100 bill on the seat. He tried to refuse it, but she was already gone. For days, Noah couldn't stop thinking about her, the billionaire with trembling hands who just wanted to be ordinary for one night. He thought that was the end. But fate wasn't done. 2 weeks later, Noah's taxi company announced it was closing. Rideshare apps had crushed business, and he was out of work overnight. Desperate, he took a part-time job as a delivery driver, mostly packages for corporate clients. His first assignment? Deliver documents to Hartman and Sons Innovations. He laughed when he saw the address. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. When he arrived, the receptionist asked him to wait. Minutes later, Isabelle herself stepped out of the elevator. She looked tired but smiled when she saw him. "Noah?" He froze. "Miss Hartman?" She laughed. "I told you it's Izzy." He handed her the package, embarrassed. "Didn't expect to see you again." "I didn't either," she said softly. "But I'm glad." He turned to go, but she stopped him. "Do you have a minute? There's something I'd like to show you." She led him through the glass hallways of her company, bright, sleek, intimidating. Yet behind every polished surface there was exhaustion. Employees whispered, glancing at her nervously. Inside her office, she motioned for him to sit. "I'm trying to rebuild this place, but everyone sees me as a headline, not a person. You're the first one who didn't," he smiled. "You'd be surprised how much people open up in the back of a cab." She hesitated. "Then maybe I need to spend more time there." He blinked. "You want to—" "Not literally," she said, laughing. "But maybe I need to listen again to people who don't have power or who've lost it." And over the next few months, she did. Isabelle started visiting the company's factory floors, talking to employees, learning their names. She set up a fund to support small garages and mechanics, after Noah told her about his dream. Word spread, not of a CEO scandal, but of a woman who cared. Noah's garage dream suddenly didn't feel so far away. One evening, as he closed his delivery van, Isabelle pulled up in her black sedan. "Hop in," she said. "I have something for you." They drove to the edge of the harbor, where the rain glimmered on the docks. She handed him an envelope. Inside was a deed for a small, empty auto shop near the waterfront. His eyes widened. "Izzy, what is this?" "An investment," she said. "You once told me you wanted to build something of your own. Consider it a partnership." He shook his head. "I can't take this." "Yes, you can," she said firmly, "because it's not charity. It's faith." He looked at her, really looked, and saw the same quiet strength behind her trembling hand. "Then I'll make it worth it." And he did. Noah's garage opened 6 months later, and it thrived. Isabelle visited often, sitting on an old stool, drinking cheap coffee, laughing as she watched him fix engines and sing along to old salsa songs. Some nights they'd stand outside under the stars, the sea breeze cool against their faces. "I still feel like I'm moving and going nowhere," she admitted once. He smiled. "That's okay. Some roads take longer, but they still lead somewhere." Then he took her hand, the one that trembled, and held it steady. "See? Sometimes you just need someone to help you hold it still." She looked at him, eyes glistening. "You always know the right thing to say." He shook his head. "No, I just say what's true." A year later, the newspapers ran a story. Billionaire CEO marries former taxi driver. But behind the headlines was something they couldn't T-print. Two souls who found balance in each other. At their wedding, Isabelle's brother, once skeptical, gave a toast. "Noah reminded my sister that leadership isn't about control, it's about connection." And she reminded him that dreams are worth chasing, even when the road looks impossible. They built a foundation together, funding vocational schools and small workshops for immigrants and veterans. The press called it the Hartman Rivera Project. They just called it family. On quiet nights, Noah still drove his old taxi through Boston streets just to remember where it began. Isabelle sometimes rode with him, hand steady in his, and every time the city lights reflected on the wet pavement, she'd whisper, "You know, I still think about that night." He'd grin. "The wrong passenger?" She'd nod. "The right one, actually. Because sometimes the universe doesn't send us what we want. It sends us what we need. A mistake, a coincidence, a storm, the wrong fare that leads to the right forever."